So, how do you guys use Facebook? Send messages. What else? Post things. Post photos. Store stuff. Promote things. Creep on people. Stalk people. Creep. Okay, what's the difference in stalk and creep?
Creeping is like find out some stuff. Like
Stalking is constantly trying to find out.
So there's like a malicious intent or
Yeah.
something? Okay, alright, so creep.
it's
Alright.
like curiosity creep.
Curiosity creeping. That's stalking.
No. Stalking is
Creeping,
totally-
okay, creeping is curiosity,
Yeah.
stalking is
It's
like
obsession
kind of
kind of.
malicious,
Yeah.
something. Okay, so creeping, alright. What kind of communication works best on Facebook? If you had to take a guess.
You have to download Facebook Messenger now. It's kind of inconvenient. It's a whole different app.
Yes, it is.
So that's kind of I wasn't a fan of that.
I'm not a fan of that either.
Yeah.
But we're stuck with it for mobile. Right. Okay, so we have a variety of different types of communication on Facebook. How often should you post on Facebook? Should you, huh? All the time? 24/7?
I feel like it depends. If you're like promoting or like promoting PR wise, maybe like twice, maybe twice a day.
Twice a day? You have something?
Yeah,
That's
my
how
mom,
it's looking like.
she has like her personal Facebook and her business Facebook.
Okay.
And she went to like this, she goes to seminars and stuff, and there's a guy who's like an expert on Facebook, and it was like at 9 o'clock is the best time to post like a text, and then at
Okay.
like 1 o'clock is the best time to post a video, and you should post a video, a picture, and like a text at like a certain amount of times. He had like the whole algorithm.
Okay, so certain times of the day are better for different types of posts.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's probably related to sleep habits and diet and work habits and things like that, whatever people are doing at different times. All right, so keep in mind Facebook's good for quick conversations. Topics, you can deal with topics related to your brand. We'll take a look here in a second how Oreo uses Facebook. Something to keep in mind, on Facebook you need to ask the right kind of questions if you want to get some kind of engagement with people. You don't want to ask deeply complex questions that make them like rely on Michel Foucault and other French philosophers to come up with a reasoned argument. You want to say things like, what did you have for breakfast today? What are you going to do tonight? Basic things to get people engaged. And we love to talk about ourselves. That's one of the principles that we need to remember is that we like to talk about ourselves on Facebook. So you're more likely to get, if it's we don't like to think about things, but we like to talk about ourselves. Does that make sense? We're kind of selfish and narcissistic as human beings. Excuse me. Facebook also kind of introduced the birthday thing. How many of you guys remembered each other's birthdays before Facebook? One person. I never remembered any birthdays. I remember my sister's birthday. I barely remember my kid's birthday, but with Facebook, I get constantly reminded of strangers' birthdays. So here's how Oreo uses it. They post short, simple questions about their product and ask their followers to chime in on it pretty much. For example, Oreo cookies turn 100 on March 6th. What gift do you think Milk will buy? Any ideas? What's a glass of milk going to give an Oreo cookie for its birthday? Okay.
Part of his
Intangibles.
A glass.
What's that?
A glass.
A glass. Okay, yeah, we don't know. But it looks like 562 people know. This is a very simple question. We got, 3,700 likes on there, 562 comments, 119 shares. Now, personally, I don't care about Oreo cookies, and I probably wouldn't engage with them. But I'm not their target market. Somebody else is their target market. Here we've got Oreo cookies are all about carefree moments. Is eating an Oreo with milk your favorite? What is it? No? Peanut butter? Okay. Well, it looks like 488 people chimed in on that. They said, we don't know what they said. They said something. 4,200 people liked this, and we got 49 shares. So look what they're doing. Simple, easy questions that get people to talk about themselves or give their opinion on stuff. Excuse me. This weather change has got to be down here. How do you guys use Twitter?
How do you do that?
How do you use it?
Yeah, I don't use it.
You don't use Twitter.
Well, I do when like things are happening, like when social things are happening, like most events on campus, and they like, well, hashtag this.
So it's episodic. Episodic. Anybody else?
I use it a lot to like promote soccer games and retweet like athletic stuff.
Okay. Anybody on Twitter right now? Yes. Let's make it a hashtag real quick. I'm not offering extra credit, but feel free to tweet during this entire day of social media. Somebody help me out with a hashtag. We'll make one up. What is it? MCM380?
BTV.
What?
No, I'm just promoting my fashion show.
Okay, fashion show. Okay. MCM380. Let's go with that. Feel free to tweet. I'd like to go back later and look and see how many people have tweeted. You don't have to, but I encourage you to do so. All right. So what kind of communication is Twitter best for? Nobody cares about Twitter anymore? Is Twitter passé now?
I like it.
It's depressing.
People get their emotions on that.
It's like
And I
certain
used to
times.
do that when I grew up, so.
It's like certain times of the hour you go on Twitter for
That's why
certain
we
things.
do it.
Right, like on Thursday nights, like just like that little tweet, like, or how to get
Oh, so you use this to interact with television, with other media. So does Twitter maybe augmenting media effects from other media?
It's like a fusion.
Like Breaking Bad or what did you?
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy? Okay. So who all uses Twitter as part of their TV watching routine?
Oh yeah,
We've got a few people.
like during award shows.
Or shows.
Yeah,
Don't watch
yeah.
things live.
If I don't watch it like that night, I won't get on because it ruined.
Oh, okay, so it can spoil
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy for everybody. Nobody watches Sons of Anarchy?
I tried to get into
Couple
it.
people. Walking Dead.
I feel
Alright, so Twitter, things to keep in mind about Twitter. It's great for immediacy. You can do some dialogue. You put @PhilMadison. I'm on there. You can tweet me right now @PhilMadison and create dialogue. And a lot of companies will even use it for customer service. Remember, customer service, you want to defuse these things before they get ugly, nip them in the bud, deal with issues before they become problems, and later grow into crises. Here's how Starbucks uses Twitter. They use Twitter to immediately respond to people when they're mad about something. Let's see. Well, we don't see what the original posters say, but Starbucks responds at whoever this is. Coffee smells delicious in a cup. Please email us. We'd like to make this right. So somebody at Starbucks screwed up. Somebody tweeted it. Starbucks responds to their tweet and says, "Hey, let's make this right. We want you to be happy." Here we go. "I'm so sorry to read this. Please email Twitter customer service. We'd like to make this right." There we go. "Sorry, crunchy coffee isn't tasty. Please email Twitter customer service. We'd like to make this right." See what they're doing there? People get angry and they go to Twitter and say, "Starbucks sucks." And then Starbucks says, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear you think Starbucks sucks. Contact customer service and we'll make this right. We'll give you a free coffee," or something like that. See what they're doing? They're defusing problems as they arise so they don't get ugly. I just got back from a conference, or PR day. Who went to PR day? Amber? Megan? Where's Benjamin? You went to the AAF thing or something. PR day in Houston. NASA has actually expanded their Twitter focus. We got to actually see an astronaut who said his exact words were, "The hardest part about astronaut training is learning how to use social media." I think he meant it as a joke, but apparently it's pretty challenging for some people. NASA tweets all kinds of stuff. They'll tweet photos, like exciting space stuff, like Mars rover kind of photos, different probes and things they send out into the solar system, taking pictures of comets and the galaxy, and all kinds of exciting things that make you feel very, very small and insignificant. Well, NASA posts that on Twitter, and they do it very regularly. They They also have tweeting from space. Astronauts in the International Space Station will tweet from space. And they've just kind of opened up entire new audiences through using social media. What else we got? Who uses Instagram? Instagram's been absorbed by Facebook. Who uses Instagram? Show of hands. Most people. I use it. What's your favorite filter? No filter. Like the black and white ones? Was it Brandon? Is that one of the ones? I can't remember. I think one of those like new filters. I need to like re-download Twitter to see if I can get some new filters out there. 1977. Low pro. Wait, what is it? Lo-fi.
Oh, that
All right. So we've got a lot of people using it, and it sounds like a lot of people like no filter. The thing I like about Instagram is you can click on Facebook and Twitter, and it goes out. I'm kind of using it like a cheap version of Hootsuite. That makes sense. Other people do that. Use Instagram, send it to Instagram plus Facebook plus Twitter, and it goes out to your social media. So Instagram works great, sharing photos, getting people, communities involved with your different, engaging people with your brand. It's important to have a theme. For a company, I mean, it's like for us, I mean, it's like selfies or whatever stuff we like take photos of in the streets. For a brand, you should have like a kind of a regular theme. For example, Red Bull does this to share extreme sporting moments, like a guy surfboarding, people kiteboarding, people cliff base jumping. Anybody done that? Base jumping, skydive. Anybody skydive? Bungee jump. Oh man, what happened to this generation? I mean, you guys are like, it's because you're too busy using Instagram. You need to go out and like do these exciting things. So Red Bull, predictably, the Red Bull gives you wings thing. We're going to see lots of exciting photos of sports moments. Now check out Sharpie. Who else vandalized a bathroom using Sharpies? We got a couple. We got one person. All right, we get two. I'm not innocent. I was 18 once. Yep. Sharpie gets people to submit stuff they draw. Look at that. We got this like intensive thing on a coffee cup. It looks like some kind of underwater alien coral world type of deal. A hand grabbing a guy. Sharpies. So I mean that's a great way to get people to engage a brand. If you're making pens or something, get people to use those pens and share it on Instagram with other people. Who all uses hashtags on Instagram? Yep. A few people. Hashtags.
Oh yeah.
How about Pinterest? Who uses Pinterest? Oh man, I'm like out of the like age here. I never could figure out how to use it. I signed up for it. I tried to use it, and I'm not smart enough to figure out how to use it.
Yeah, I was like looking at DIYs and like fitness plans I never made too.
Fitness plans?
Yeah, they have like a lot of great ideas for different things, like do it yourselves.
Like fashion shows?
Meal prep. Yes, fashion shows. There's one tonight.
They have fashion shows on Pinterest. Okay. All right. So as you know, Pinterest is primary visual. A lot of lifestyle stuff. I mean, it's like we got food porn. We've got what else? Like making fashion things and arts and crafts and lifestyle kinds of things. A lot of food, right? Some people can use it. You can use it for shopping. Every time I've gotten on the Pinterest, I get like hijacked and end up in some shopping site. Another reason I'm not really a Pinterest fan. Here's how Whole Foods uses it. Who goes to Whole Foods? Who goes to Whole Foods on Sunday to eat all their free samples?
Sometimes.
Not the only one.
Oh, I might have my
All right, Pinterest. They share lots of recipes. Again, food porn. I mean, is there another better word for it?
Nope.
Food porn. I remember when Instagram first came out. I mean, that's what everybody's doing, taking a picture of their burrito.
Yeah, they're like, wait, don't eat that.
You guys still do that?
Yes.
Take pictures of your burritos and share them?
On Instagram.
I do that on Snapchat.
I like Pinterest. It's like they look perfect on
Oh,
Pinterest, and
I've
then
seen
you make
that.
it and it looks like crap, and
Yeah.
then it's like a funny hashtag.
Yes, I've seen these, and I find it hilarious. All right, so Whole Foods. One more thing let's take a look at is QR codes. Who all has their personal QR code? Who all has their own website? Yep. Weebly, blogs, anything. You guys ought to go out and go Google QR code and create a QR code for your website, and then take that QR code, copy and paste it into your resume. Now, you got to make sure it works if you're actually using it for an employer. We've got an applicant right now for a broadcast position who has a QR code. I get out my QR code scanner, scan it, and it doesn't work. So, if you put it on your resume, make sure that it goes to something. So these things are used to connect digital to print, or something printed out to digital. In Baton Rouge, there is a building with this giant shark on it. It's like some kind of special school. I don't know what kind of special school. It's got a giant shark on it. And on the side of the building, a giant QR code. The Cleveland Museum of Art uses these in kind of a clever way. They put them on all the exhibits. So you go in with your smartphone and you use your QR code scanner and you can read about the exhibit. Pretty cool. And they don't print out the exhibit, they just spit out a QR code and put it on the different things. So today we're going to get some, who all has a blog? 1, 2, 3. Who all has an abandoned blog? A lot more, yeah. How many abandoned blogs do you guys have? You got a few? I have several abandoned blogs. Now let's talk with Paige Brown. Paige Brown is a doctoral student at LSU. And let's figure out and she researches blogging. And so I think she's going to be a good person for you guys to talk with. I'm going to turn this around so she can see us. Hello?
Hi!
Let's see if we got you grainy, but it looks like you're coming into focus. Awesome.
Let me know if there's enough light through here.
Awesome. Can you see our classroom here?
Yeah, I can!
Hey, everybody wave at Paige.
Hi!
Paige is a doctoral student. She's also has a Master of Science, correct?
Yes.
And she studies science communication. I'm going to go ahead. I'll let you tell them more about yourself and about your research. I've explained that, well, we talked a little bit about research and PR, but they're not familiar with academic research, so please tell them what you do. And thanks again for being with us.
Yeah, I'm a PhD student in the Mass Communication program here at LSU, as your professor probably told you. And so I study science communication. Just kind of generally, I like to study things about how people perceive messages about science, maybe how they perceive risks about like climate change or different environmental issues and stuff like that. But lately for my dissertations, for my PhD, I'm actually studying the practices of science blogging or science bloggers. So so this research is what we call more qualitative. So I'm pretty much talking to science bloggers, asking them about their practices, maybe how do they choose what to write about, what do they consider blog worthy. You know, we talk about newsworthiness. You've probably learned about news values and, you know, what makes a journalist decide something's newsworthy. But we don't know that really for bloggers, and are they choosing different things than journalists might be choosing? And they probably are, depending on their background and stuff like that. So, yes, I'm kind of looking at all that and looking at their practices. It involves a lot of talking to people and then doing some surveys. If y'all have kind of heard about doing survey research, stuff like that. So it's pretty fun. So I came from the sciences. So I was a biological engineering master's student. And so I just kind of wanted to keep the science with me. And so anything I could study in the mass communications field that has to do with science, I try to tie it back. So let's see, what else about me? Phil, do you have any specific questions?
Blogging, you're doing research on blogging, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, what is it used to be like everybody and their grandmother had a blog. We just I just asked the students how many blogs they have. We had like 4 or 5 responses. I said, well, how many dead blogs or how many abandoned blogs do we have? And pretty much a lot more hands shot up.
Right.
What's the status of the blogging world these days? Is it becoming more, I don't know, like have specific audiences or what's the status of it these days?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I'm studying, just science blogs. So it's, a very, I guess, it is a niche, type of blogging. So maybe I can't talk to like all different kinds of blogging. Maybe just anyone can jump on a blog, and maybe it's going to look more like maybe a personal diary, or maybe you're just talking about your day or your travels or something. But so I'm looking at specifically people who blog about science. And so a lot of these people, they'll either be scientists who have decided that they need to do more outreach, and so they'll start a blog to kind of do outreach to people, or it might be science journalists or aspiring science journalists. And as we know, well, maybe you don't know, but science journalism today is just having a really hard time. So in traditional media outlets, traditional newspapers have dropped their science sections, and they don't really have specialized science coverage a lot of the times, which is really frustrating to a lot of scientists and science writers. So it's kind of like they decided they've taken a lot of that to blogs. So science bloggers are doing a lot of the almost science journalism that we know today. And that's kind of moved, science blogging has moved mainstream to where now, I don't know if any of y'all read stuff like the Scientific American blogs, Discover Magazine has blogs, National Geographic has some really prominent science bloggers. So these are basically bloggers who are being paid to blog for a traditional media outlet. They still have all the control. They can still pretty much write about whatever they want. And they're writing about new scientific research and new papers. So it's a really kind of fascinating thing that, now some traditional news outlets have basically brought on bloggers to sort of expand what they can't do by hiring maybe somebody to do their science journalism. And so kind of blogging has sort of moved beyond just this maybe traditional like ranting about news coverage or just being someone's personal blog. There's a lot of science blogs that have pretty extensive reach, and they're moving, they're blurring the lines between journalism and blogging, which is kind of interesting. So I'm kind of looking at, that specific niche of blogging. What else?
What kind of questions do you guys have?
Questions for her?
Huh? This is James Burns. He's coming over so he can.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
So, did you hear when you felt familiar?
What's that?
Never mind about it.
James is being goofy. You have any blogging questions for Paige? Sorry about that, Paige. Any blogging questions for Paige?
Or social media questions. So yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of science bloggers, they pair their blogging with use of Twitter mostly, to where it's hugely important that if they other social media, other social networking sites are extremely important to gathering information, how they distribute their information now. So.
All right. So, do you have any? Some of these people may end up in journalism at some point.
Yeah.
And I don't know. In my experience, I've started a few blogs myself, but they ended up kind of like dying off, I guess. Is there any suggestions you might have for them that might help give their blogs some longevity?
Yeah. Well, so blogging is, obviously, I think it's really fun, and it's a really great way to build up your portfolio if you ever want to do that. And the nice thing is that you can do anything with the blog. So if you decide you want to go the route of, writing for a magazine, on your blog, you can decide that your pieces are going to look like magazine pieces, and that's the way you're going to blog. So I mean, there's been some thought, some people will say, oh, if you blog, you have to do it every day, or, even every week, has to be like short, blurby posts. And that's, it's kind of the standard, but that's not really necessarily true. So you could tailor it to anything you want it to look like. So there's a very well-known blogger, she's essentially a professional science writer, but she blogs for National Geographic, Mary McKenna, and she basically does one post a month, and it's just a really well-researched, essentially something like a magazine type article that she just, puts up on her blog once a month. So you can really tailor it to maybe where you're wanting to go and make your blog post look like that. And the nice thing about blogs today is they almost have more longevity. If you try to find a news article from a year ago, it might actually be hard to find. Unless it's stored online somewhere and there's a link. But blogs actually, as long as that person, especially if it's for a network like Scientific American or a traditional news outlet, they keep those blogs up to where you can find a blog post from many years ago linked to, and you can still find it, and it still gets traffic, it still gets reads. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like blogs are more, usually they're really good archives of former information, so they can stay around and be getting reads from a long time ago. So you could, have posted stuff something once a month, and it still could get plenty of reads if you're sharing it in the right ways. And I really, a lot of bloggers today are actually joining up in networks and group blogs. And in that way, they only have to do, maybe you join a group blog and you only have to submit a post once every few months. But the blog is still getting traffic because you're blogging with other people. That's a really common thing nowadays. So you don't just have to be doing it alone and maintain your own blog and have it be like a personal thing about you. You could contribute to a group blog that's more like straight journalism, or maybe it's really well-researched pieces, and you could do something like that. So it's all about your goal with what you would eventually do, and you can tailor your blogging to that. Any other questions?
Blog-related questions.
I have a question. How did you go from sciences and biology to studying blogs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I get that a lot. I think it's kind of a weird transition. So I was in a PhD program in biomedical engineering in St. Louis. And so I don't know if you're familiar with what you have to do for a PhD, but I was in the lab. So, I was kind of in a lab doing bench work, kind of your traditional white coat, how you imagine a scientist works in the lab. And some of that, it's kind of a frustrating as a scientist in the lab. That, it's kind of grinding. There's a lot of things that don't work. It's not like, you go and do experiments every day, and a lot of times things just day after day, don't work. And it can be kind of frustrating. And so as a grad student, a lot of times you're trying to find other things to kind of, put your creativity into. And so I started a blog during my PhD in biological engineering. And also, just randomly, my professor at that time, so a lot of the other students in the lab were from China or from Asia, and so they needed help writing their papers, their publications. So I basically started doing that for them anyway. I just realized I liked writing about science just as much or even more than I liked actually doing it in the lab. And so I ended up leaving that PhD program, coming back to Louisiana to LSU, taking some classes in mass comm. I just really liked it. I really enjoyed writing about the science. And so I just kind of moved into a PhD from there.
I'm just curious, have you done your comps yet?
I have. Did my comps, and I proposed my dissertation, so I'm working on that final big project that you do for your PhD.
Okay, what's the topic of your dissertation? I assume
So essentially my topic is, I forget what the title of it was now, but essentially the practices and routines of science bloggers. So I don't know if y'all have learned about some of the traditional studies where like a researcher went into the newsroom and kind of watched journalists interacting with their editors. I don't know if you've read some of those studies where basically we, from like the 70s and 80s, kind of how we learned about how the newsroom works and what news values are. And so I wanted to do a little bit of that with science bloggers. And it's a little hard because, you know, I can't go to some physical space. There's not some kind of newsroom where I can go to watch science bloggers do what they do. So I'm kind of trying to interact with them on Twitter, interview them through Skype, maybe do a survey of them, to try to get at some of these, try to learn about what they do.
Okay. All right, more questions? I think there's still kind of a Snapchat. We had a Snapchat presentation here just a little while ago.
Awesome.
This is, I don't know how much I've played. This is our social media week, and we're looking at all these different types of social media and looking at functions and characteristics of social media and things like that. And blogging is kind of, we haven't really talked much about blogging, and so I'm hoping to use this opportunity to kind of expose the students, you know, to somebody that knows more about, or knows something about blogging.
Yeah. Yeah, so I taught a strategic social media class here at LSU, so if you have any questions about social media more generally. But so are most of you interested in going into journalism versus PR, I guess? Or anybody in PR?
Show of hands.
Yeah, so blogging might be a little different. You know, you could definitely, there's a lot of institutions, right? Or, I mean, if we think about university, if I think about science blogs, a lot of universities are using blogs to also bypass traditional media as well. So just the fact that, say at LSU, the PR department here wants to, you know, talk about the cool science that our researchers are doing here. They can start a blog and basically be doing science, you know, public relations or strategic social media, or strategic communications, and get straight to a public audience with this cool science, and not necessarily even have to go through the traditional press release and out to the, you know, the science journalist. So that's kind of a, you know, a cool new thing for strategic communicators too, is using the social media to target both other journalists as well as the public.
Our crisis communication isn't until Tuesday, but that's our understanding from previous speakers. They've explained that crises always break on social media first, and so that's where we've got to, like, for PR purposes, we should pay attention to social media, just to try to contain crises when they happen, and then address the normal media afterwards. But that's coming out Tuesday, folks. Make sure you read the chapter. Okay.
You have any questions about social media? Maybe your own use of it?
I got a question.
No.
Yeah.
Real quick. How do you clean your social media? Like,
How do you what?
like clean it. Like, I've been going back trying like erase all my Twitter feeds, but it takes too long.
Yeah. Oh, you want to like go back? You don't like what you did before?
Yeah, I was kind of ruthless back then.
Oh yeah. So one of the nice things about Twitter is that it's not hugely. The longevity of the tweets is not. It's not like technically someone else could find them, but they kind of fall back. So, you know, some people think that they have to start a whole new like Twitter account or even a whole new blog to do. Well, I was tweeting about, I don't know, science or PR, and now I want to do something different, so I have to start a new Twitter account or a new blog to talk about this other thing. I don't think that's necessarily true. You can definitely like transition your brand to something new just by moving in that direction, tweeting a lot about that or blogging about that. Sometimes it's good to keep the different sides of yourself together on a social media account because people can see, it's a little bit more transparent to people if you kind of show different sides of yourself all in the same account. You know, maybe not your pictures of going out partying or something, but definitely it's good to kind of have a multifaceted personality on social media too.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
questions?
Are any of y'all interested in, well, Phil said there's not necessarily a lot of research at your institution, but are any of you interested in going into research into mass communication? Grad school?
I think I scared them away with research a couple of weeks ago.
Oh no.
I think that's what happened. I think they got turned off to it, so I've got to find a better way to engage them. But it's a fascinating world of collecting data.
Yeah, well, you might be interested. A lot of journalists are doing, if we talk about like data journalism, they're getting really into, almost doing, we talk about research, but any forms of collecting data. For PR, you do a lot of audience research. You're researching who your audience is and using metrics on social media to see if you're targeting the right audience and stuff like that. And my research is really kind of almost touchy-feely a little bit. I'm doing research, but it's really involves just talking to people, and so that's kind of the cool thing I like about doing this research on science blogging. I basically just get to sit down and talk to these people that are doing cool things and try to interview them and get out of them exactly what their motivations are and why they do what they do and how they decide, what a good story is. What is a good story? What does a good blog post look like? Trying to get at that.
How much of your research is face-to-face, and how much of it is mediated through email or other means?
Well, it's interesting. So, face-to-face, but all of my interviews with bloggers have been through Skype because I'm kind of interviewing them all over the country. So I guess it's still kind of mediated, But yeah, so I've interviewed 50 science bloggers for my one part of my research, and I'm going to be doing a survey of them for the other parts. The survey is going to let me get to a bigger sample of people.
Okay. And what, just out of curiosity, which sciences have more bloggers putting out content than other sciences?
Well, that's a really good question. So we talk about, so if we look at, there's some bloggers who might think about, there's some topics in blogging that are just really popular. And because they're popular and they get readers, maybe some bloggers, if they want a lot of readers, they're going to go in that direction. So you might see more science bloggers talking about maybe, fuzzy animals. Any blog that brings in talk of biology, or maybe some space blogs. But, there's some areas of science that people are better able to connect directly to, versus if you imagine trying to go and read a blog about math or physics, it might be a little harder for you to connect. So there might be, a whole explosion of blogs talking about insects and biology and dolphins and cool stuff like that. But we might have less bloggers who are trying to push making physics relatable or making chemistry relatable. So that's something I'll definitely kind of want to look at in my research.
Are there a lot of math blogs? I'm just curious.
There are. I think they just talk to each other.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty inaccessible.
Yeah. So, there's some areas of science that's a lot harder to get people to connect to. And that's something you see in the science journalism as well. Science journalism, some people do it really well. But trying to do science journalism about, chemistry or something can be really difficult.
Has anybody seen a math blog? I'm just curious. Show of hands.
No math blogs. Who wants to read a math blog, right?
Or stats blogs and things like that. Okay. All right. So, what kind of questions do we have? We've got page for a couple more minutes here. We good?
You can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about blogging.
I have a question.
Oh wait, we got a question from the back. Logan.
The blog that I have is a Tumblr blog, but there are a lot of science-related blogs on there. Like what you said, there's blogs specifically related towards insects, and they'll post a picture of the insect and a lot of facts about it. And there's space blogs that I follow and stuff like that. Do you research Tumblr blogs or blogs outside of Tumblr?
So you're saying blogs on Tumblr?
Yes.
Yeah, so Tumblr is a neat site because it's a little bit more, it's almost a cross between a blogging platform and a social network. So a lot of times the people will start a Tumblr blog, and it's sometimes for more visually driven content, or sometimes shorter blog posts, shorter materials. And so it's interesting that some people that put a blog on Tumblr, just because of the nature of the platform, their blog will end up looking a little bit different. Maybe some GIFs and videos and pictures and stuff like that. But I do know some bloggers who do use Tumblr. So yeah, it's interesting to also look at different platforms themselves and how they kind of drive, the nature of the platform, whether it drives more visual content or more text, and how that ends up making the content different. There's a big push in blogging to do more multimedia. So, there's science bloggers who have now transitioned to doing solely like videos about science, or more multimedia content than just text-based posts. And the visuals are really powerful for science communication because you imagine you can probably engage someone better if it's kind of a cool video about science than making them read this big long, paragraph about a scientific paper.
Go ahead. This is Megan.
I have a question. I know sometimes a lot of people have free blogs. Do you see a difference in the people who have the free version and the people who pay to upgrade and have all the nice things? I don't know if there's a difference in the two blogs.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, with the free version of WordPress, there's so much you can do. I don't really see that much of a difference, unless it's I blog for Scilog, so it's basically owned by Nature Magazine, and so they probably bought the self-hosted. They probably bought WordPress, and they were able to maybe customize it more. Especially if you're going to have a network of bloggers, you might want to customize your network to be very unique looking. But other than that, some of these, even Blogspot, but especially WordPress, there's so much functionality in the free software. It's amazing. You can make your blog look just as good as somebody else's. Some of the self-hosted things are nice because you could also make a portfolio. Some of those websites like Squarespace, they allow you to make a little bit more of a portfolio for yourself, have different pages, like an About You page, make it a little bit more looking like a website than a blog. So that can be nice, but some people, just want the simple, really simple blog. And there's a job to make it know now. It's really simple interfaces for mobile content. It's good. So if your blog is more mobile friendly, to where if it looks really good on this mobile device and I can read it, it's not all cluttered, that's better nowadays, because a lot of people are reading these types of things online on their mobile device. So yeah, if you do start a blog, thinking about the mobile design of it, does it look good on a mobile device is really important.
Do people actually, or do people blog from mobile devices? I haven't figured out how to type on a phone.
That's a good question. I don't at all. I have to have my computer to enter a blog entry. Maybe Tumblr is good for that. I don't know. I think some people are able to do that. For WordPress, it might be a little hard. But yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I should ask bloggers that where they're entering in their information, their entries.
You're bloggers in this classroom. Do you guys use mobile devices, or do you use less mobile devices to do your blogging?
I tried on my phone one time and I couldn't get the format right. Or when I did it, I went on the computer and it looked weird.
Okay.
So I just did it on the computer.
Okay, like a desktop or a laptop?
Yeah, laptop.
Okay. Anybody else? So you just got one person that actually has tried it, but it didn't work out so well.
Because it's interesting because we do all of our, for Instagram and Twitter, we probably do a lot of that stuff on our phones, but maybe not the longer entries of blogging.
Yeah. And my calendar is full of misspellings, so you won't see me blogging on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Jamie.
So after you finish with your research, what do you want to do? With blogging and science, do you want to create your own? I mean, you have your blog, but I don't know.
I'm sorry. I a professor, I think. So I'm kind of looking around now. So yeah, I really like to teach and do the research. So I kind of want a position where I can do both. But I'm kind of keeping my options open. That's another thing, even during my PhD, the reason why I still blog on the side, I still do some freelance journalism, science journalism on the side, because I like to have that option. And I actually encourage other grad students and students to do that too, even if you're looking into research or in grad school, to continue that practical side, to always improve your writing. I mean, blogging is a great thing to do while you're a student. I mean, it just if you maintain one blog, say you have an interest, it could be anything. So in some of your classes, do your professors make you blog about, I don't know, the books you read or anything like that? Like, do they make you blog, like, for class? Well, a really good thing to do. So I know sometimes it's easy to be like, okay, well, I'll start a blog for this class, and I'll start a different blog for this class. But what it ends up doing is you just have a bunch of these blogs, and they're all kind of separate, and then they're never really going to necessarily, these things should be helping you, eventually get a job. So just think about, if you're interested in going into, I don't know, fashion or something, or any kind of journalism. If you start a blog and have that as the theme, and then try to, in each class, as you're having to blog, maybe try to relate it back to the interest. Like, what I do is I have a science blog, and in every class, any professor that was like, okay, you have to blog about this book this week, I would try to find anything in the book that was somehow related to science, and I would pull that into my blog and write about the book from a science angle. And I would just put it on my blog. And what it ends up doing is just giving my own personal blog more content and building up my portfolio in this area that I enjoy. And so I'm getting some kind of practical, there's some use for having to do that, blogging on that book for class. So I encourage students to do that too. Decide something you're interested in. It could be cooking, it could be anything, and try to relate what you're learning to that. And it's a really powerful learning tool. I encourage that use of blogging for students.
You're giving me ideas here, and
Good.
they'll probably end up hating me for any ideas that I
I feel
implement.
like he's going to say read a book and then talk about it.
I also used to have my students live tweet the lectures, so I had a whole class where they had to live tweet each lecture. It was pretty fun. So they had other people from not in our class, following our class discussions. So you can try that one day. So they can live tweet their lecture, their guests.
Yeah, we've actually got a hashtag up here. You can't see it. It's out of the camera's way. We have a hashtag up here. I have encouraged them to tweet this and to use the hashtag with Instagram and Facebook today, but I don't know. Can somebody check it? Has anybody actually tweeted using this hashtag?
Yeah.
James did. Shamika did. Anybody else?
But if you tweet to me with a question, I promise I'll answer. I try to be really good at ask me anything on Twitter, and I'll get back to you.
Cool. Okay. Any more questions for Paige? Okay, we have a tradition. Since we're in Nacogdoches, Texas, and we're 3 hours from Dallas and 2 hours from Houston, and so we don't get many guest speakers, so it's always a privilege when we have somebody Skype with us. But we do have a tradition of taking a photo with our guest speaker projected up on our projection screen. So at this time, I'd like to ask everybody to kind of come up here and sit around the screen, and we're going to take a photo. And we will use the hashtag MCM38. No, they're getting up to go to the screen here, Paige.
A bunch of students with a big face.
Come on, let's get some light. All right. Hop in there. Yeah, one. There we go. Maybe one with this, and then one with that, and then one with flash.
There's a whole other person in the chair over here. Y'all calling me.
And so you guys are saying no filter on this one, right?
Wait, I wasn't looking.
You
It's
ready?
like 1, 2, 3 or anything.
All right. All right. Hold on. Let's take a shot though. It's hard to see Paige up on the screen. All right. talk about that in a minute. Okay, any last questions? Last call for questions.
It's a word.
Before we go over today. All right.
Just like, oh, enough of vlogging.
All right, Paige, well, thank you so much. We sure do appreciate it. All right. And we're going to invite you back one of these days, possibly next semester. And hopefully your dissertation will be like further along and stuff. You know when you're given a defense date set, you're still in the writing part.
Yeah, no, I'm still collecting data and transcribing interviews, so I have a ways to go.
Fun times. That took me 2 years to do. So,
Yeah.
so I do not envy you. But I will say it is better on the other side.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right, thanks again for being with us, and we'll be in touch. And if you look up hashtag MCM380, you may see a couple of photos of the class in action.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
All right, we'll let you go.
Thank